Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be talking about prank kits and why they are just so good at what they do. So to begin, let's just start with a little bit of history. Prank kits, they debuted in Hidden Summoners in very late 2018. They did top a YCS in 2019. But it was still considered a pretty rogue deck. Its main problem was its consistency, since at that time they only had access to Link 2s and fusions. So since none of their cards were one card extenders, they often needed 3 card combos in order to function, usually consisting of Poly plus 2 kids. I believe Orphis Scorpio plus any prank it worked, since you could go into Cherubini. It was something weird on those lines. And pretty inconsistent overall. Maybe even pranks plus 2 prank it. All of them were just 3 card combos, and you couldn't get those consistent tops, which was what kept them from being a tier 1 or tier 2 deck, let's just say. So it still had that power and recursion that it has today. You can still have Butler on the field once they get their combo starting. They could still get the various recursion tools such as the Weather Water, Rocket Ride, Dodo Bird, Bow Wow. Like, those tools are insane, but at that time they just didn't have it. Now comes November of 2020, almost 2 years after, well, not almost, pretty much more than 2 years, I think, you get a new prank kit Link 1. Now, in case you're unaware, all the prank kits, once they're used as Link material or fusion material, they summon another name from the deck, obviously being once per turn, and a Link 1, it just turns all of them into 1 card starters, turning on the entire engine. And this just fixed their biggest issue, consistency. And consistency is just pretty much the most important aspect when it comes to tier 1 or tier 2 decks, because tiers are pretty much defined by how often you see them in top cut, and if you're able to get consistent tops, you need a consistent deck. That's basically how it functions. But having a Link 1 for a deck that can summon from deck every time you Link summon is just insane. So apart from consistency, it, as I said, has a lot of things going for it. It's got its boss monster to top up is really good. Double Butler is really strong. That's another thing that comes into being a meta deck, having a strong turn 1 board. And you also have recursion in the deck, and recursion is probably the scariest aspect of it, to be honest. It's just the ability to have so many recursion tools. You've got stuff like Prank It's Pranks, which shuffles back stuff, draws 1, so you ensure you never run out of gas. You've got Bow Wow Bark, which is able to add things from your graveyard to your hand on your opponent's turn. You've got Doodle Bird, which adds things from your graveyard to your hand on your turn. You've got Rocket Ride, which just recovers Doodle Bird and other monsters you might want to summon. You've got Weather Washer, which is just able to get you back resources from the graveyard, similar to Rocket Ride. And all of your boss monsters, Rip Roaring Roaster and Butler, all of them just float into more things. And that is really the scariest aspect of it. While double Butler, double Quick Effect Raigeki is really strong, that's not the main reason why a lot of prank kids win their duels. The biggest reason is just their ability to grind like monsters and being able to just establish a board, establish a winning game state with overwhelming advantage, and basically have a 1 card access code from there on out. It's really insane. So that is kind of what the makings of the meta deck. They can also take advantage of some very scary cards like Mystic Mind and There Can Be Only One. And how they can take advantage of them, well, all of their cards, well, most of them at least, have different typings. So you can very easily run There Can Be Only One in a combo oriented, well, I wouldn't call it a combo oriented deck, but they do kind of pop off, making multiple summons to make multiple pretty scary plays. So I say I kind of call it a combo-ish thing, but you kind of get what I mean. Being able to run There Can Be Only One in a fast-paced deck is just absolutely insane. Same goes for Mystic Mind. That deck can just fulfill the condition for Mind so easily, simply because a lot of their recursion tools, Bow Wow Bark and Dodo Bird, specifically looking at those two, they're able to just tribute themselves, get back cards from the graveyard, and they just leave you with no cards on the field. So as soon as your opponent summons a monster, they're just locked out of effects for the rest of the turn. It is really, really scary, and that's just another reason why it is so good. But their biggest issue right now is kind of their resilience against disruption. It is kind of difficult for them to play through a single pop, being one card starters now. Earlier you could probably chain block pretty easily. Rocket Ride is able to chain block with his effect, and by that time you have enough material to just overwhelm your opponent with advantage. But now a single Ash Blossom is pretty turn ending, to be honest. Now if you Ash them, they once again need those 3-card combos to play through an Ash now. But then they have that there can be only one thing I said earlier. They're able to just rely on these tech cards, rely on stuff like, triple tactics talents. There can be only one, generic trap cards like Ice Dragon's Prison, generic hand traps, all of that stuff, in order to slow down the game enough to get another normal summon next turn. But that is kind of their biggest issue, resilience against disruption. But that ability to just, the hyper consistency of it just ensures you open multiple normal summons per hand, so you're able to just wait till next turn to do it again and again and again and again and again. It's a very, very scary deck. So in order to get into these tech cards more often, people have started playing cards like Pot of Desires, even if it can hurt them in the long run, just because they might not be able to get into more gas. You run triple tactics talent, simply because that extra ability to draw tech cards if you don't have them, or if you already have tech cards, the confiscation effect is absolutely horrendous. You've got lots of other tech cards. It's really up to player's choice, to be honest, and it's just very, very fun deck to play too. Double Butler, as I said, is not the main reason they win games. It's not because it's weak or anything. Double Raigeki is insane, but it's extremely easy to deal with, mainly because it does rely on their fusion spell, and their fusion spell also only works during the main phase too, keeping that in mind. So if you even have an MST negates, just having a single MST could be enough to just stop them from making a Butler. That's kind of how easy it is to deal with any single form of disruption, like maybe a Kaiju. Well, Kaijus probably aren't that great against Butler, since it will float into more cards, into more stuff. Dex Recursion is insane. But you get my point. Just any one card interruptions, impermanence, anything on those lines kind of does stop the card. And your main reason for fusing those 3 cards on your opponent's turn, a lot of Pranked players have been saying that their main reason for doing that is to get those 3 bodies on the field for next turn. And those 3 bodies are generally material for Totally Awesome plus an extra Pranked in order to pop off with Totally Awesome protection. So you've got that extra layer of protection, so you don't have to rely on your opponent just not having enough disruption. The deck does struggle against back row decks, so stuff like Eldritch. So they do run their fair share of blowouts with stuff like Harpy's Feather Duster, maybe even Twin Twisters if you're really annoyed by them. But that's kind of their main weakness, resilience. They could easily be like Dragon Link tier if they just had better resilience against hand traps. Now the Pranked deck of itself is still evolving. They're still looking for optimal card choices, stuff like that. We're several months in, even though they can take advantage of monster cards like Mystic Mine. There can be only one. Neither of the topping lists that came in top 2 of the most recent LCS were playing. There can be only one, so there is a lot of room for player preference, one might say. You can realistically just play a lot of things you want to play. Some opt for mine, some even opt for skill drain, which I think is pretty suited for the specifically Pranked Eldritch build that topped the last LCS. Not last one before that. I must say that deck is actually pretty cool. The Pranked Eldritch one is pretty innovative, to be honest. I gotta respect that player. So I kind of expect the Pranked deck to just bloom over the next couple of months. I don't really think there are too many great hits for the ban list. Like, the most realistic one I could probably think of is a Meow Meow limit, so that they can't do their combos post turn 1. But I'm not too sure about that, especially since Meow Meow is a relatively new card, and you know how Konami is to new cards. They don't want their sales to, go down. But I'm not too sure of what they could possibly hit on the ban list. Limits don't do them any favor, simply because all their materials, just mainly pranks, just recycling them during the end phase. Alright, so I guess that is it for the video. Don't forget to like, subscribe. Not a lot of you are subscribing, just like 3%. But I guess I'll see you next time then. Goodbye.